Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to cover basic drift car setup as far as alignment settings go, and how to set up your new angle kit, the stock angle kit, whether you're new to drifting, experienced, or just want to understand what your alignment should be, a good baseline where to start, and how each change or effect is causing different things of how the car feels and drives. I know a lot of people chase their tail. I did when I was new for the longest time, trying to understand, what caster does, why do I need such a high amount, or what does toe do, why does Ackerman matter in drifting. That video is going to cover all that so you can understand what it is, how it affects you, how to make your car drive better, and how to maximize that tire life. All right, diving straight into it. So we're going to start with the front end of your car, and we're going to talk about caster first. Before we move into the adjustments and what these settings are, first thing you always want to do is square up your car before you start. Squaring it up, purple box, center line, 4 wheels. Make sure that all your wheels are straight and it's tracking straight and not crab walking down the road, meaning that you could have the right front and the left front slightly canted to the right, which would give you 0 toe out, but you're tracking to the right now. So measure your power steering rack. You can look that up, and then make sure all your measurements in the rear are squared up. So once the car is squared, then you can move into making adjustments and kind of setting the car up properly so you have a good baseline. All right, moving into caster. So once you have it squared, we go into setting up the caster. What is it? How does it affect me? And how do I set my car up? So caster is what is changing the angle of your strut to the knuckle or ball joint or lower control arm area. By changing it, you're going to shift that lower forward or back, which changes the strut forward or back and how it cants, and that's going to give you that self-steer effect or lack thereof. Common misconception with caster is that I need high caster for the car to drive well. Yes, but no. Most people that think they need excess casters because they release the wheel completely and then try to grab it when they think they're supposed to, versus letting that wheel trace through your hand so you can control that rate to angle and control where you want the car to go instead of letting the car drive you. So don't think that excess is the best, and don't think that not having any is the best either. With that being said, the effects of how you do it. So going positive, forward in the wheel well, negative, coming back in the wheel well. So too much caster or going too far forward is going to cause you to snap to lock or over rotate a lot, and the car is going to want to go immediately to full angle or as much as it can until you stop it. So now you're trying to stop the car from over rotating instead of you trying to drive the car to angle yourself. And the opposite for too little. So too little, you're going to have that numb steering wheel feel. It's not going to self-steer. You're going to have to flick it or feed it or help that car rotate on its own. So there's a pro and a con to both. So you need to find that kind of middle area that shoots you in the center so the car drives well, but it's also not doing what you don't want it to do. Once you have the caster set, before moving on, make sure you understand that there's a few other things that affect how caster work. The first being front grip. So your tire pressure, tire compound, make sure you have a consistent tire up front. Don't keep making a bunch of changes at once. So consistent tire, same pressure, then set your alignment. That's going to affect how your steering wheel feels based off the grip that those front tires have so it can rotate. And lastly, caster will greatly affect what's called over-centering or over-centering your rack or tie rod binding. You're going to hear them used different ways. It all means the same thing. And this is a perfect time to see where your limit is of angle and set your lock stops. So left side's probably good on your caster setting, and right is probably bad. This is looking at it from top down. The blue line is just kind of squaring off the front end versus the back end. Red is the lower control arm, black's the tie rod, purple's your tire. So with this red line roughly in the center, or that lower control arm, where the tie rod comes out at a lot of angle, you can see the tie rod is parallel to the lower control arm or centered up with the car and still squared. So it's not binding, it's happy, it's not doing what it shouldn't do, it's straight shot into that rack. This is good. Moving over to bad, as that lower control arm goes forward, or you shift that strut forward in the wheel well over here to increase that caster, as you do that, your tie rod at the same amount of angle at some point is going to start to bend forward or get closer to the LCA. So you can see here the gap's smaller, which means you're now over centering. How you mitigate that is one, relocating your rack, or limiting your angle with a lock stop. So what I would do in this case, if that's the caster you want, but this is the max angle you can get where it over centers, is set that lock stop on the back of your kit so that it stops that wheel from going any further before that tie rod gets excessively more forward and starts to bind, or you get that weird awkward wobble once you get the full lock and get stuck. So this is what over centering is. Good, it's straight. Bad, it's bending forward, the angle's not straight anymore. That pretty much sums up caster, how to set it up. As far as recommended numbers, anywhere from 3 to 9. 3 being the lower side is probably your full-blown kits like WiseFab, FTF. They're going to run a lower setting because of how the geometry is set up. If you're stock, Go to your stock baseline, start from there, and adjust as necessary. Whatever your kits say to do, start with that number. Don't just use what someone tells you unless it's a proven kit and a good driver that has the same exact setup as you, and then adjust from there. Moving on after caster is setting up your camber next. So camber is those tilted wheels in the front, so tilted in from the top is negative, out would be positive. For drift cars, we're going to want negative static camber. Static meaning the wheels are straight or your steering wheel centered, and they should be tilted into the top with negative camber. Why do we want that? Because at lock, we want to have 0 so that we have good grip and steering wheel feel and good response. So how much camber you set or how better you can get that contact patch at angle is going to dictate how well your steering feels, how much front grip you have, and how consistent the front end is going to feel at lock. So static, the reason it's going to be negative is because for a drift car, we don't drive straight. Straight for a drift car is the wheels turned anywhere from 60 to 85% or 100% of your lock. So if straight for us is the wheels turned, then we need to make sure that we have 0 degrees of camber at angle or where we tend to drive the car. So static, we'll put it negative because as we turn the car to lock, you're going to, that wheel, the lead wheel is going to stand up and we want to get it to 0. At what point do we want it at 0? So the best thing you can do is go out to your car. If you have a stock angle kit, meaning you're probably going to drive with full angle, you're going to want to go to like 85 to 100% of your lock on that lead wheel and then adjust the camber until you get full contact patch on that lead wheel. And then whatever that side is, match it up with the other side. Now, if you have a FDF or something that has excess angle, we'll say, anywhere of 50 degrees and upward, you're not going to drive at full angle all the time, full tilt. So those, you're going to go more towards 60 or 70% of full lock on that lead wheel and adjust that negative camber until that wheel on the lead has full contact patch. Depending on your car's setup, whether you have to update or adjust the upper control arm versus the strut top hat, adjust it static and then just turn the wheel to full lock, see what it gets you, and find out where that full contact patch is at where you intend to drive the car straight or in drift. So in drift, full contact patch, straight, you're going to have a little contact patch because you have negative camber. Depending on your kit's geometry, will dictate how much it takes. Recommended 60 to 85%. As far as a number goes, most kits typically land anywhere from -3 to all the way up to like -6, depending on how stock or modified knuckles, depending on other geometry characteristics. That pretty much covers camber. There's not a lot to it. You're just trying to get the max grip you can while you're in drift so you have good steering wheel feel, which affects how that caster is going to feel tying back to that first one. Now we're going to adjust your toe. So adjusting toe is, like we talked about in the beginning with squaring your car up. Toe out means your front tires are pointed out. Toe in means your front tires will be pointing in towards the center of the car. Dotted line's the center on all drawings. 0 toe would mean they're both parallel, which is where you started at. So what does toe do? Toe is going to affect the front end is that turn in or that steering response. So how fast that car reacts to that input to turn into the direction of drift or into the turn. So toe out is going to make it a faster turn in, a faster response, but in excess of that could make it very twitchy or unstable as you get closer and further to lock. Versus toe in, it's going to be very slow to react. It's going to take a way bigger input to get the car to react and go over the center axis to start your turn. It'll be more stable in drift because it's naturally going to get, the toe is going to change. But for most drift cars, you're not going to want toe in on that front end. So I recommend setting up anywhere between a 1/8 inch total toe out in the front to 3/8 inch being the most excessive. This is all going to be kind of dictated by how fast you drive, how experienced you are, and the rest of your car's setup. So why does it affect the turn in response? You heard me say something about over the center axis. So purple lines are just the outsides of the roads here. These little red boxes are 2 cars. So if we have a towed in car in the front, why it's lazy is because since both wheels are already turned in and we're trying to make a right turn, you're going to have to turn more before this right wheel going into the turn will get actually turned in the direction that you're trying to travel. So it's going to take longer. Versus a towed out car, well, on that right turn we're trying to do, that right wheel is already facing to the right. So it's only going to take a smaller input with that steering wheel to get this car to initiate that turn to the right. So if you're towed out, faster, towed in, it's going to be lazier. Drift cars, toe them out. Start low, you can always go up from there. Toe is easy to do with toe plates or a gyro line, something like that. All right, before we dive into the rear end, most of your cars you can't adjust this unless you have a full-blown angle kit, and it's going to give you the recommended settings, is Ackerman. So Ackerman is the difference between your lead and trail wheels max steering angle. Positive, meaning that the lead wheel has more angle than the trail wheel, and then negative, meaning that the lead wheel has less angle than the trail wheel. Parallel would mean they both have the exact same, or zero would mean they have the exact same amount of angle, lead and trail. Depending on where your rack is relocated, if it's factory or relocated, depending on the kit you have and where you change that pickup on your angle kit is going to dictate what type of Ackerman you get. Positive Ackerman is going to be more stable, easier to control, and you can drive the car wide. And it's going to feel more natural to you, but it could be slower in drift if you looked at it from the way geometry works. Negative would be faster in drift, but the car's going to want to take itself wide, and you're going to have to try and drive it back in, and it's going to be very twitchy at lock. Parallel is where you kind of get in that circumstance where you see a lot of guys look like they're crab walking or they're stuck, because if you don't have enough power or speed to drive with momentum at all that angle that you're carrying with parallel, it's just going to kind of look like you're stuck and very slow in drift because you're not moving anywhere, but you have a lot of angle. Recommend you use positive. You can go lower. Most kids have like a +4, +2, parallel, and then like -2, -4. Negative Ackerman's typically not very popular except for maybe like competitive levels of like FD or super fast tracks where they're trying to be as fast as they can, but they are very twitchy and can be hard to drive. So for the most part of you, set your kit up with positive Ackerman. The more crazy your kit gets, you can come back down. I typically go one above parallel on all my kits on both my cars and previous cars. So what it looks like and what I mean by driving is the first turn. Just think of these as the same exact turn. I just couldn't draw both the same size because we don't have space. But the first car has positive. So lead wheel has more angle than the trail. You can see that red line is dictating where this car goes in the corner, right? So based off this picture here, you can see it's not going super wide. It's kind of going straight off the path of that trail wheel because that's the angle. Yes, you're driving off the lead wheel, but where that trail wheel's angle is dictates where the car is going to want to go towards based off how much you're scrubbing. Versus negative, lower lead wheel, a lot of angle on the trail wheel on negative Ackerman. You can see the angle off of it is already going wider into the corner than the positive was. So positive, it's going to go mid or towards the inside. You drive it wide. Negative, it's going to want to go wide. You got to drive it back in off the wall. Can be twitchy. Is going to be very stable. If you have a factory car, you're kind of stuck with factory Ackerman unless the kit has like an adjustable stop for it. But if it does, I would come down one notch off of factory. I wouldn't stay full up on like +4 per se. Anything else, you're going to have to base it off where you over center at or how you want to drive the car and how you're setting it up. But that's Ackerman. It's the last thing we'll get to. Toe, camber, caster, all that's going to affect it. But if you're just starting out, just set it on one, start from there, and then adjust as you feel necessary to get better and more comfortable with the car. All right, guys, well, I got your attention. Sorry to interrupt the video, but I just want to cover something real quick. If you haven't been on my Instagram, Rage Drift Co., or seen the brand, the channel Slide Science, but I brand everything under Rage Drift Co. It's just real grassroots enthusiasts. I'm just trying to give back to the community, design cool parts, and bring back that grassroots, rowdy environment to the community itself. With that being said, head on over to the page. I've got a giveaway going on right now. It's not as cool as giving away a car, but it's basically the same thing. I got coilover covers. They're neoprene. Keeps your coils from rusting and getting hard to adjust. Giving away a set of those. I got custom floor mats. We got the Sunset Tiger. We got Royal Plum, which is like a blue and green fade. And then we got the Hot Tiger, which is a red, kind of a red to orange gradient with the tiger stripe in the background. I'm also giving away your shirt of your choice. It's free. All you got to do is go to my Instagram. I'll drop a link in the description. And just by watching the video and subscribing, it gets you an extra entry as well. All right, moving on to the rear, guys. We're going to discuss camber and toe for setting up the rear. You'll do camber first, then set your toe. The reason they're both on the board is they go hand in hand. So what camber affects in the rear, similar to the front, is the grip of the car and your tire wear. Reason being is static, where the car's sitting on the ground level, is if you had 0 degrees or straight up and down, as you squat that car, you're going to gain negative camber in the rear end. For toe, same thing. It also gives you grip and tire wear in the rear. Static, if you set it to 0, or the wheels are straight, tracking straight, but with no weight, not loaded down, just sitting there, as you squat the car, it's going to get negative camber, so they're going to kick in, and then you're going to get toe out, or they're going to point out, which is not what you want. So to compensate for that, stock dynamic camber and toe gain, it's going to gain negative camber and it's going to toe out. So in a stock setup, what you want to do is full tank of gas. And if you can do it yourself, if you're on a rack, then you want to set yourself to probably anywhere between start at 0 or positive up to positive 0.5 degrees of camber in the rear, depending on your spring rate. So if you have a stiffer rear spring, it might not take as much positive because you're not going to squat as much, which means you won't gain as much negative. If you have a softer spring, then you're probably going to have to add that 0.5 to compensate for how much it squats and goes negative in drift. With that being said, put it on the rack, adjust that, and then set your toe. Same thing, depending on your spring rate, dictates how far you go. Anywhere between 1/8 inch to a 1/2 inch total toe in. And then once you've done that on the rack, grab a ratchet strap or throw some extra weight in the rear and load the car. Not all the way down till max, because you're not probably driving the car at full throttle all the time. Also, same with the front, you don't drive at full angle. So you want to set this to have the best tire wear and grip at the neutral area, or where you're most likely to be at with that rear end and where it's set up in the suspension, which is, probably halfway for a baseline. So add some weight to the rear end or pull it down with a ratchet strap on the rack to simulate the car being loaded in drift, and see where your toe and your camber lands. It should land somewhere around 0 degrees camber for the best tire wear and contact patch, and around 0 degrees of toe, so that you're not excess wearing your tires, and they're not pointed out and making the car feel darty. The recommendations is where I would start if you're a beginner. If you're more advanced, you can increase that toe for grip. However, I would caution you, don't rely solely on toe. Use your roll bar and spring rates to get more out of it than just keep going more and more toe in. Same thing with your tire pressure and compound. So there's multiple variants for grip and tire wear in the rear. Camber is pretty much what it is for tire life. You're going to want that 0. Toe, you're going to want it to be consistent. You don't want it to be super darty, so you don't want to squat the car fully down in the rear and then get it to 0, because that would mean where you typically drive it at, it's still going to be very toed in. So think of it as the further it has to go from, let's say, 0 to 5 at full squat. If it has to go from 0 to 5 as you're drifting, that's a huge range for that car to go through, and you're going to feel that it's going to be very, very twitchy. Versus 0 to 2.5 to where you actually drive it at, that's not a large change. You won't notice it, and it's going to be very predictable. With all that being said, ultimately in the rear end, it comes down to you, how much grip you want, how much power you have, and how consistent you want the car to be. Personally, I know we all want to save money, so you probably want to make sure you got 0 and 0 once that car is squatted. And if you want to drive a little bit faster and more grip, add a little bit more toe in at a loaded scenario, and then adjust your tire pressures and your roll bar for even more. Those are way easier to reset versus changing your toe. So take it for what it is, but that's the rear and front end setup of the car. Hopefully you gained something from the video. I have a lot of overlays I threw in as well to kind of help paint some pictures. And see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.